Hello everyone, this is Magbo Gaming here, once again commentating on another video from Nintendo in Angry Guy's channel. I hope you're all doing well. So, you know the drill. Be sure to check out his Rumble as well if you want to see some of his uncensored content. And also be sure to check out his Crypto Academy for those that are interested in knowing how to invest into crypto, knowing how to day trade, how to stack up cryptos for the long term, making your money work for you and all that stuff. A lot of good stuff. I'm pretty sure that you're going to enjoy it once you give it a try. Anyway, let's get on to this commentary that has to be done with Nintendo Switch 2 is underperforming by Nintendo.
Don't let the headlines fool you, folks. The Switch 2 is very likely underperforming. Matt Piscatella of Circana shared the 1-month data numbers for the Nintendo Switch 2 in the United States of America. 1.6 million units sold in all of June, with obviously 1.1 million of that being in the first 4 days. For reference, the previous record for the opening month was the PlayStation 4, which sold 1.1 million units over the entire month. But of course, the PS4 ran out of stock after that opening launch weekend, where they sold that 1.1 million units in the United States.
So in other words, if the PS4 had a lot more stock, then they would have sold a lot more than 1.1 million units, it seems. So keeping that in mind, Nintendo was more prepared in stocks of the Nintendo Switch 2 than they did in previous consoles. So it took like several days for them to sell out completely. And that's why we get the 3.5 million units that were sold in the first 4 days, pretty much.
Basically, the Switch 2 had 500,000 units sold versus everybody else being sold out after the first weekend. Once again, highlighting that the best thing that the Switch 2 and Nintendo really was able to accomplish with this launch was the fact that they were delaying the launch in order to stockpile, to have these fluffy giant numbers at the start, to give people an idea that they are the most sought-after console in history. It's a very Sony tactic. Make sure that the highest number says Nintendo with the records by it. Something that Nintendo historically never used to try to compete for, but would just happen naturally when they put their passion in their games. But we'll get to that in a second. There'll be more Sony comparisons later on in this video. Now, in a reply to a user's post who said, even with the online sentiment being the console was overpriced, seems like people didn't care after all. Wallets did the big talking as per usual. Prices.
Yeah, of course. As I said many times before, people could say that they're not going to buy the Switch 2 or they don't want to support it, but the hype is so real that like, oh, I got to buy it anyways because I really want to see how it really is and all that stuff. I really want to make YouTube videos on it. And yeah, it sold very well. We're not going to see a price drop anytime soon.
Will just keep increasing, unfortunately. To which Matt replies something that he's been alluding to since as early as January of this year, if not before that. Launch buyers of any new video game product will be, by nature, the most enthusiastic and least price sensitive. So obviously, and this is me saying this, not Matt, it is way too soon to say that the wallets have done the talking. In an interview with IGN, that was also released.
And also, like I said, it may have sold very well the first month, but we'll see how the coming months will go, the game releases, to see if the hype is still going to stay real with the new game releases or if it's going to die down slowly onto the holiday seasons. Only time will tell what's really going to happen.
Today in the morning, IGN asked Matt if the first month numbers of the Switch 2 success means it's on track to outsell the Switch 1, and Matt says the lifetime sales and launch sales of a console often do not correlate, meaning that some consoles with small launches end up doing incredibly well lifetime, while other with big launches end up not doing as well lifetime. And then this next part is what gets me. Launch month demand is rarely satiated by available supply. And it is certainly not a great sign when it is, historically. Which means if there are so many people that are still getting Switch 2s every day and every other day, sometimes even 2 in one day if you're a scalper, then that means that launch month supply has been satiated, and it is not a great sign when it is, historically. There are more Switch 2 units available than there are people buying them. That's not a good sign. Now, there are a few more points I'd like to bring up in relation to this as well. First and foremost, that 5 million units number sold in the first month was X'd out and denied by Nintendo. People keep bringing it up. I have mentioned it in every single video. The Switch 2 has no evidence that it sold 5 million units in the first month. It might have.
So, in other words, you think that Nintendo's actually lying about the numbers, or they want to paint in a light where it's doing so well and they don't want people to know that it's struggling? it doesn't want to know the exact truth on what's really going on with the sales of the Switch 2. Yeah, like I said, this number cannot be kept a secret for too long if it continues to be at the path that it is. So, the real numbers come in eventually and we'll get to know about it.
It also might have sold 10 million. There are numbers that are just being grasped at here with no data backing it up. That 5 million number was leaked before the 1 month even finished. We were at like the second or third week of the Switch 2's launch at the time when it initially leaked. And it was discussed on most forums and people were like, oh yeah, this is just test data, it's realistically not real. But then on July 1st, some Reddit user decided to post it on our Nintendo and ran with it and saying, this is from Nintendo's website, this is true. And that's the only reason that a bunch of news got out.
Okay, so we're seeing like, okay, Switch 2 hardware sold way more than Nintendo Switch 1, of course. Especially for the month of June when it launched. Yeah, so yeah, it's definitely sold quite a bit, I guess, if that's what this thing is official and what it says is true.
But obviously, quickly after that, somebody at Nintendo removed that test data off their website because they're like, this is not accurate. Why is this person sharing this information? Why is it on our website? Prompting David Gibson to ask Nintendo about the leak of the Switch 2 data, and they said that it appeared that test data prepared for our website update was unintentionally made publicly accessible. And the best part is, at the end of it, he was like, oh, don't take it that the 5 million Switch 2 sell in for June. I'm expecting 5.4 million when results are announced on August 1st. Which, in fairness, again, is a possibility. But at that point, he's the one expecting the 5.4 million, because now you have other people going around saying, realistically speaking, the Switch 2 sold 5.4 million after launch. And they're saying that because this guy's an analyst, so he's predicting things, so he must be right. But analysts also predicted that the Switch 2 would sell out 6 to 8 million units at the launch of the Switch 2, and we haven't even reached that in the first month. Anyway, that's not the point. The 5 million not being real yet is old news at this point. What is interesting, however, is the numbers in that test data and what that could potentially mean. So in the test data, it reveals that in Japan they sold 1.47 million units. So in Japan, I think that number is fairly accurate because I think in Japan they have a stronger hold on how many units are actually being sold. They know how many they're putting out in every lottery. They know that every lottery is selling out, which obviously is happening because it's much cheaper in Japan than it is in the States. So I think that 1.47 is probably accurate or fairly close to it. What's interesting to me though is that they predicted 1.8 million units would be sold in the United States in that first month. And a lot of people have been saying that that 1.8 is very realistic, and in fact, a lot of people have been predicting 2 million will be sold in the United States in the first month, and that's part of the reason why so many people have been spouting that 5.4 plus million number for the first month of sales. So now, with 5 million units sold in the first month, the assumption was that the United States alone would have 1.8 million, and we're down 200,000 units already. So at the very least, we know two things. Number one, if the European and the Japanese numbers and the rest of the world numbers are accurate on this website, we're not at that 5 million, which means we're also not at the 5.4 million that analyst predicted. But of course, this is also assuming that the Switch 2 sold as many as it did that's predicted on this test website in Europe, which realistically, it's probably not because it's not doing too well in Europe. It's not selling out in a lot of locations.
So, from what I'm understanding right now, that in Europe, there's still a lot of Switch 2s that's still in stores. So you could easily go in a store. You can buy it no problem. People are not crazy about it. I think it's just as expensive in Europe, if not more. Because I know for a fact that in Australia and in Canada, it's far more expensive, the Switch 2 over there, than here in the United States of America. So that is pretty crazy, I must say. And then, like, it's no wonder why they're not being sold out in those regions. And here, yet we're selling out, but we're getting restocks and stuff. The real numbers, I really hope, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo's lying about the numbers. Like, it's probably so less than they actually saying. I don't know. It's just so they could keep the shareholders happy or something like that. Only time will tell, like I said.
Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now.
data predicting 1.8 million units sold in the United States, and in actuality, we only got 1.6 million units sold in the United States, which means already that 5 million number has gone down. And until there's data proving otherwise, as far as we're concerned, the Switch 2 is not sold 5 million units in the first month worldwide. But there is more to discuss than just that, because there's something very...
I really hope that the sales number is much lower than 5 million. Wanna know why? Because if the sales are a lot worse than what they're telling us, then I would just have to pray to God that the sales are so bad that they will eventually drop the price to like $350. I mean, it's very unlikely it will happen, but I'm still having hope about it, because that's what needs to happen if they want to sell a lot more going forward from the average consumer.
Interesting that I have noticed specifically over the past week. Now, you guys know that I'm all about the theory that Nintendo has been manufacturing hype, pretending the Switch 2 is in demand everywhere and you can't even walk into a store to grab it, even though it keeps getting drip-fed every 2 or 3 days in every single store. And really, part of that manufacturing hype is the fact that they withheld stock in order to get to the Switch 2's launch, in order to have that big number at the start when they launched it. Instead of launching it 7 months earlier for the actual enthusiasts, they delayed the launch in order to make it appear as if there are more enthusiasts there readily available. Well, seemingly they're doing the exact same thing, because with the launch of DK Bonanza, I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but there were Switch 2s available up the wazoo over those first couple of days. Everybody suddenly had them in stock, because now the numbers can show that DK Bonanza launched and...
Yeah, you know why I think that's happening? It's because with the launch of DK Bonanza, they want to make absolutely sure that they have more than enough stocks in order for it to sell alongside that game. So what it sounds to me is that they're probably withholding stocks. Like, they had a lot of stocks that were backed up. So when Donkey Kong Bonanza comes out, they have stock prepared already to be sold during that launch day, because not a lot of people will be happy if you see DK Bonanza's launch, you don't have a Switch 2 yet, and you don't have any way to be able to play Donkey Kong Bonanza because, well, guess what? They're all sold out, right? So I think that's exactly why that's happening.
It sold all these units, when in actuality, that seemed to be part of the launch plan the entire time. Save a bunch of units, when DK Bonanza comes out, people can buy the Switch 2 with that. Again, this is manufacturing hype. They're once again withholding Switch 2 units from people that actually want them in order to have numbers that look better. They're very obsessed with this figure, this number, this data. Something that historically Nintendo fans have laughed at Sony about, because you know how it goes. Sony will do that thing where they'll randomly find 200,000 PlayStation 2s if it means keeping that number at the top. But seemingly, Nintendo is primarily focused on the numbers as well now, instead of the end user being happy like they previously used to focus on. But it goes even beyond that, and at this point, I'm reaching straight up assumption levels. This is no longer backed up by data or facts or anything. While there were a lot of units available at launch of DK Bonanza, it was still kind of like, loosening up a little bit. But specifically, in the past 24 hours, maybe even 48 hours, the Nintendo Switch 2s have flooded the market. At first, it was just the Mario Kart bundle, but no, it ended up being the Mario Kart bundle and the original Switch 2. I'm talking Best Buys, I'm talking Targets. Meijer has stock. These things are available everywhere, and they have been consistently available everywhere for a few days now. Clearly, they are done withholding stocks. It seems like somebody has finally pulled the lever to move these units. These all have been sitting...
So right now, as we're speaking on July 23rd, 2025, as I record this video, and this video was uploaded today as well, the same day as I'm recording this. Yeah, so basically what's going on is, you could go to a store right now, apparently, and you could find thousands and thousands of Switch 2s in stocks all over the place. If you want a Switch 2, just go to a store. Just walk to the store. Take your sweet time. You find a Switch 2. There you go. You bought it. You're happy. Cool. Yeah, that's how easy it is to find a Switch 2 now. The scalpers are going to be out of business because, they don't see profits in that anymore. I guess that's what they're saying. Well, I'm going to go to Walmart in the next few days, and I'm going to see if that's true on my end in Puerto Rico. Let's see if there's some Switch 2 in stocks then. And then I'll report that later on next week or so.
Somewhere in a warehouse, and now everybody's like, okay, we're done trying to do this whole facade. Just put as many as you can out there because we need to get them moving fast. And I have a very big feeling they're doing that for a couple of reasons. Number one, the Switch 2 is just not moving well with this whole fake holding stock thing. And number two, they announced the new bundle with Pokemon, so they're like, oh shoot, we gotta move these things out of the way so that people can buy the Pokemon one when it comes out in a month or two. This is my prediction, but I think going forward from this point on, the Switch 2 is just gonna be available. I think everybody that really wanted one got it, and now everybody that's remaining that still really wants one is going to get it, and then after that, it's just gonna taper off. You're gonna see an uptick in sales numbers tomorrow, actually, with the Japan numbers, because they realistically did something similar there with Donkey Kong Bonanza, and then maybe the following week, but I think after that, it's just about done at that point. With the first month out of the way, the second month slowly closing up now too, I think that honeymoon phase is just about done, and in a short amount of time, we're gonna see it level off entirely. There was like one thing I was kind of concerned about, potentially, and that was Pokemon, with the Pokemon Presents yesterday. I'm like, if they announce something bizarre out of this world, there's gonna be a whole bunch of people flooding to the stores to make sure they get their Switch 2 for Pokemon.
Yeah, and it's gonna sell so much that it's gonna be sold out. But to be honest, on the Pokemon games coming up, sure, Champions feels like Pokemon Stadium 2, but will there be voice acting there? If there is no voice acting there, then that means they're behind N64 still, and I don't like it. And I feel that the graphics of Pokemon Champion is not as good as Pokemon Battle Revolution. If you remember playing that game, if you know what Pokemon looked like in Pokemon Battle Revolution, New Pokemon Snap, and what was the last game? Oh yeah, Pokken Tournament. Those graphics are still not on par with those three games. The Pokemon look their best on those three games. And guess what? I have all three games as well.
But no, that Pokemon Presents was about as innovative as the Switch 2 itself. So there's nothing really exciting happening there. Even the bundle didn't even have anything cool with the Switch 2 console itself. It's just a regular console with a game. Gone are the days of creativity, it seems. But yeah, you're about to see a lot of headlines about the 1.6 million units sold and how it's the best console launch in the history of console launches. And it is, just like the Dreamcast was. Well done. But as time goes on, it's getting clearer and clearer to me. The Switch 2 is not even remotely in demand, as people online would have you believe that it is. The backlash is working, the gaming industry as a whole will be humbled, and hopefully that means prices will go down.
I hope that the prices goes down, because as long as it stays on that $450 price point, I am not gonna buy it. If it's the same price like the Switch one is now, like the Switch one when it came out was $300, and today in 2025, still $300, if the same thing happens with Switch 2 that's the same price, I will never buy it from them brand new, that's for sure. And if I buy a used one, well, you know what happened with the bricking and all that stuff, that you may buy a Switch 2, you gotta make sure that it could connect to Nintendo Switch Online, or else yeah, you got a brick and you can't do crap with it. Except for like playing like physical games, I guess, more or less. Yeah, what you guys think about that? Honestly, like I said, the prices need to go down. Nintendo needs to be more humble. They need to take more risk. They need to be more creative again with their stuff. And I hope those days come back, honestly. I really do hope that the corrupt Nintendo can recover. But this time, I hope that they learn that when they go sky high and on top again, that they don't revert back to their scummy anti-consumer ways afterwards. Only time will tell, and I really doubt that's going to happen. But you just never know. The future, we do not know. We cannot assume one thing that's going to happen in the future, and Nintendo will never lower their price ever again. But the chances of that happening is pretty high so far. So like I said, we'll see what happens. We'll see what other games comes along and see how this thing goes. Anyways, be sure to check out Angry Guy also on Rumble if you want the uncensored videos. Be sure to check out Angry's Crypto Academy if you want to learn more about cryptocurrency and everything like that. And check out my YouTube channel, Magbo Gaming, if you want to know what video game collections I have. Me flexing different retro gamings out there in my collection too. me hunting down some games that I want, talking about gaming as well, gaming discussion. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I hope this commentary helped you understand what's going on with the sales and that the sales could probably continue to degrade going forward. Because now that Donkey Kong Bonanza's out there, it's not gonna be like very exciting for a while. We know Pokemon ZA is gonna come out, but yeah, I'm not super excited for ZA. I may get it eventually, but it's not like I'm like super hyped on it. No, I'm not super hyped on it. I just not. But yeah, only time will tell if I'm gonna get a Switch 2 later this year or next year or the year after. I'll see you all the next one. Magbo Gaming out, and peace.